Farage's report zeroed in on a particular consultancy firm that had secured over $19 million in strategic development contracts from 8 separate councils. On paper, these contracts appeared routine, developing sustainability roadmaps, conducting climate audits, improving community resilience. But upon inspection, the work was either non-existent or outsourced to third parties for a fraction of the original fee. The consultancy's directors had no academic or professional background in environmental science. Instead, they shared a common history. All had served as either campaign donors or committee advisors for sitting councillors. Even more alarmingly, the firm operated out of a rented office in London with no permanent staff. Investigators labelled it a shell operation, designed not to serve the public, but to siphon funds under the guise of progress. The more invoices they reviewed, the more audacious the corruption seemed. In one borough of Greater Manchester, Farage's team uncovered a chain of emails showing council officers fast-tracking a $1.2 million grant to a cultural enrichment initiative. This initiative turned out to be a music festival that never happened. No venue was booked, no artists were confirmed, and yet the full amount was disbursed. Where did the money go? According to internal council logs, the grant recipient dissolved their organisation 3 days after receiving the payment. Attempts to track the funds through banking partners hit a wall of red tape, suggesting deliberate laundering. But it didn't stop there. Another council in West Yorkshire approved $750,000 for diversity education outreach, channeling the money into an NGO run by a councillor's spouse. The NGO's listed office address was a residential flat. Its website was a single-page site with stock images and vague mission statements. No records of events, educational materials or community engagement could be found. When locals were asked about the programme, none had ever heard of it. Meanwhile, real local services, like children's libraries and homeless shelters, were being forced to close due to budget constraints. Farage's investigators weren't just dealing with missing money, they were confronting an entire system built on opacity. Councils routinely used vague terminology to hide transactions. Payments were categorised under headings like operational, support, or strategic partnership engagement, offering no insight into who was paid or for what service. In some cases, FOI, Freedom of Information, requests submitted by journalists and Reform UK members were outright rejected, citing commercial sensitivity or data privacy concerns. One local activist described the experience as trying to shine a light through a wall of smoke. Even internal council watchdogs were compromised. In multiple councils, Farage's team discovered that oversight committees responsible for reviewing financial activity had direct personal or professional links to those issuing the contracts. It was the classic fox guarding the henhouse scenario. One committee chair was found to have previously worked as a consultant for the same firm, now receiving council funds. Another had family members on the payroll of a contractor, flagged for multiple procurement violations. With such entanglements, accountability became a myth. The psychological impact on council staff should not be underestimated. Whistleblowers described a culture of fear where raising concerns about suspicious contracts led to swift retribution. One junior procurement officer, speaking anonymously, revealed how her manager instructed her to process the payment and delete the audit trail. When she refused and flagged the issue to HR, she was moved to a different department with no access to financial systems. Others described a chilling silence among colleagues, where no one dared to ask why millions were being funneled to invisible projects. As the scandal widened, Farage's public statements grew sharper. "This is not just about corruption, it's about betrayal," he said in a televised speech. "Every pound misused is a pound stolen from a mother needing childcare, a pensioner awaiting home repairs, or a veteran living on the streets." The British public, already distrustful of central government, now faced a horrifying reality. Even their local councils, once thought to be the closest and most accountable level of governance, were operating with the same arrogance and secrecy that plagued Westminster. The media, though initially hesitant, began to take notice. Independent journalists started digging through the leaked documents published by Reform UK. Some of their findings were even worse than expected. In Kent, reporters uncovered a $900,000 payment to a youth employment accelerator programme that had never hired a single youth. In Scotland, a cross-border council partnership had spent over $1.4 million on inclusivity training delivered by a company with no trainers, no clients, and no reviews. It was a ghost operation, and it had received funds from at least 3 different local authorities. In a separate revelation, Farage's team found that nearly 40% of flagged contractors had no record of delivering public services prior to receiving council funds. Many were created within months of receiving their first payment. Their directors were often former councillors, assistants, or politically connected insiders. In some instances, email communications showed blatant favouritism in tendering processes, with one councillor writing, "Let's keep this in-house and make sure it goes to someone we can trust." These findings, when taken together, pointed to a disturbing conclusion. Councils across Britain have, in numerous cases, ceased to be neutral public service institutions. They have become vehicles for personal enrichment, political patronage, and opaque power brokering. What should be a transparent, accountable system has been transformed into a playground for opportunists hiding behind the illusion of community development. Now the pressure is escalating. Reform UK is demanding a full, public inquiry into local government corruption. Petitions are gaining thousands of signatures. Local citizens are demanding forensic audits, resignations and prosecutions. Some councils are already feeling the heat. A few have suspended contracts, others have frozen spending reviews, and at least 2 council CEOs are rumoured to be preparing for early retirement. Meanwhile, Reform UK is preparing a second dossier, one that promises to name even more councils and dig deeper into the web of backdoor deals. Farage has made his position crystal clear. This isn't over until every corrupt official is exposed and held to account. And with each passing day, it appears that Britain's local government scandal is only just beginning to unravel. The truth is out. The evidence is undeniable. The rage in the hearts of millions is real, and the moment is now. For too long, corrupt councillors, protected by shadowy political elites, have siphoned off the lifeblood of Britain's working communities, lining their pockets while ordinary citizens suffer in silence. Nigel Farage didn't just expose a scandal, he lit a fire in the minds of every citizen who's ever been told, "There's no money left," while watching their streets decay, their bins overflow, and their pleas fall on deaf ears. This is no longer about party lines. It's about right versus wrong. It's about truth versus deception. And it's about the people of Britain standing together to take back control. You've heard the facts. You've seen the betrayal. Now the question is, what will you do about it? Silence is no longer an option. Ignorance is no longer a shield. Every person watching this must realise we are at a tipping point. Either we allow this web of corruption to spread even deeper, or we rise. Every corrupt official exposed, every stolen pound accounted for, and every dishonest council held to justice starts with you. Yes, you, the taxpayer, the parent, the veteran, the nurse, the small business owner. You are the backbone of this nation, and now you must become its voice. Farage has thrown down the gauntlet, but this fight won't be won by one man alone. It requires a movement. It demands mass participation. Don't just share this video. Act. Demand transparency from your local council. Attend the meetings. Ask the questions. File the Freedom of Information requests. Join the push for a national inquiry. Support candidates who are committed to rooting out corruption, not protecting it. Reform UK is calling for whistleblower protections, criminal prosecutions, and financial audits at every level of local government. But unless the public stands up, the establishment will brush this under the rug like they always do. This time we cannot let that happen. It's time for citizens to reclaim power from a political class that's forgotten who they work for, and that starts by making your voice heard. Flood your councillors with letters. Demand to see how every pound is being spent. Speak out at town halls, join protests, share evidence and expose the rot. If you or someone you know has documents, testimonies or evidence, step forward. This is the moment history will remember, when the people of Britain said enough. If this video has stirred something in you, Don't let the emotion fade. Turn it into action. Subscribe and follow Reform UK's ongoing investigations. Share this message far and wide. And if you're tired of being lied to, if you're tired of seeing your community fall apart while councillors live like kings, then take that first step today. Because change doesn't come from Westminster. It comes from us. Nigel Farage has just blown the lid off what may be the biggest council corruption scandal in modern British history. In a jaw-dropping move that's already sending tremors through town halls and government corridors, Farage has unveiled a bombshell, report filled with damning revelations, exposing how local councils across England have been bleeding taxpayers dry, not through incompetence, but through what he calls organised deception. From secretive multi-million-pound contracts to politically connected firms, to absurd luxury expenditures hidden deep in redacted documents, the depth of this corruption is staggering. And now, with the public's trust crumbling and whistleblowers coming forward, the question on everyone's lips is chillingly simple. How much of your money has already disappeared? This isn't some distant rumour or vague accusation. It's real, it's happening right now, and Nigel Farage is naming names. Armed with a team of investigators, financial analysts, procurement auditors and legal experts, Farage launched a sweeping inquiry into the spending records of 10 councils where Reform UK has gained influence. What they found has stunned even hardened political observers. The investigation uncovered a tangled web of waste, fraud and cover-ups that stretch back years, possibly even decades. Local authorities, once trusted to handle public funds responsibly, are now under fire for squandering millions on shady contracts, luxurious travel and consultancy deals that reek of cronyism. It all began with a single tip-off. A whistleblower from within a Midlands council handed over a folder of documents. Nothing dramatic at first glance, just invoices, payment, logs and council meeting minutes. But Farage's analysts quickly realised something was very wrong. Payments were being made to companies with no websites, no phone numbers, and sometimes no listed staff. Contracts worth hundreds of thousands were signed off in closed-door sessions without competitive bidding. The deeper they dug, the clearer it became. This wasn't financial mismanagement, it was institutionalised corruption. One early discovery rocked Reform UK's internal team. In a sleepy corner of Norfolk, a $14 million IT modernisation project was launched to streamline digital services. But according to internal audits, over 70% of the funds were paid up front to a contractor whose directors were former council employees. To make matters worse, no significant progress had been made even 2 years into the project. No functioning software. No user rollouts, just a black hole of missing cash and vague excuses. And when Reform councillors pushed for a public inquiry, they were stonewalled. One senior official reportedly told a Reform representative to drop it quietly for the good of the council's image, but Farage didn't drop it. He doubled down. He ordered a comprehensive audit of council expenditures across all 10 authorities where Reform UK had established a foothold. From Durham to Devon, from Kent to Cumbria, the results were jaw-dropping. In total, over $310 million in suspicious transactions were flagged in just the first phase of the investigation. The nature of these expenses varied wildly. Some were padded contracts, others were untraceable grants, and many were listed under vague categories like public engagement or external advisory services. It became clear that these labels were deliberately vague to mask the true nature of the spending. One particularly egregious case came from a council in Oxfordshire, where $2.8 million was spent over 4 years on community innovation hubs. But Farage's team visited these locations and found mostly empty buildings, some without electricity or Wi-Fi, and one completely shuttered since 2022. Local residents were stunned. They had no idea such projects even existed. There were no notices, no community meetings, no updates. It was as if the money had simply vanished into the ether. This pattern repeated again and again. In Hampshire, a $600,000 green energy grant, intended for solar infrastructure, somehow ended up funding landscaping for a private golf course adjacent to a councillor's home. When pressed, the council claimed it had been an administrative error. In South Yorkshire, council staff were caught signing off tens of thousands in travel reimbursements for research trips to international conferences held in luxury resorts across Europe. Farage's investigators uncovered receipts for champagne dinners, private tour guides, and first-class flights, all paid for by local taxpayers struggling to afford their energy bills. The picture is horrifying. Councils are spending with impunity, hiding behind bureaucratic language and red tape. They sign off on six-figure contracts in minutes, while residents wait months for pothole repairs and hospital appointments. Farage's team concluded that the issue wasn't just waste, it was intentional obfuscation. Reports were buried, numbers were manipulated, and uncomfortable questions were met with vague replies or outright hostility. But perhaps the most disturbing finding is this: the same names keep appearing. Many of the companies receiving large council contracts are linked through networks of former councillors, retired executives, and political donors. In one instance, 4 different councils had awarded contracts to the same environmental consultancy, each contract just under the legal threshold that would require open tender. It's a tactic known as contract splitting, and it's illegal if used to dodge transparency rules. Yet there it was, on paper, in black and white. The shockwaves are spreading fast. Inside Parliament, MPs are beginning to take notice. Reform UK has submitted an urgent request for a national investigation, backed by a 240-page report outlining key findings, leaked emails, internal council memos, and financial discrepancies. Already, pressure is mounting on the local government. Association to respond. Whispers are circulating in Whitehall. There are calls for resignations. Some councils are hurriedly deleting online records, while others are holding emergency meetings behind closed doors. But Farage isn't letting go. He's vowed to release every shred of evidence to the public, promising total transparency. The team. British people deserve to know how their money is being spent, he declared. This isn't a one-off scandal, it's a national disgrace, and we're only just getting started. The question now isn't whether there was corruption, it's how far it went, who benefited, and who will be held accountable. As Nigel Farage's investigation deepened, what began as isolated cases of suspicious spending evolved into a web of interconnected corruption that spanned across counties, councils, and political affiliations. This wasn't about a few rogue officials or minor oversights. It was an intricate network operating under the cover of legality. What shocked even seasoned analysts was the consistent pattern of abuse, same vendors, same justification language, and in many cases, the same decision-makers recycling power behind closed doors. As each new council was examined, Farage's team found themselves confronting a chilling realization. This network wasn't just allowed to exist, it was protected, nurtured, and hidden by layers of bureaucracy and complicity.